Why TJ Watt is better than Myles Garrett, and it's not even close. If you want to learn why, you want to learn how, stick around. I'm Ron John. This is Steelers Therapy. Let's talk TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. So let me give you some quick perspective on why we're doing this and why I have to prove this to everybody using black and white statistics. Myles Garrett was elected Defensive Player of the Year in 2023. Oftentimes there's media pundits that say he's the best edge rusher or pass rusher in the league, best defensive player in the league. There's PFF that loves Myles Garrett, and they're always grading him the highest, putting TJ Watt behind him. But I'm going to teach you why this is wrong and why I'm right in clear black and white. So first of all, statistics. What are statistics? That's the name of the game. You should talk to a Lean Six Sigma black belt like me and somebody that works in business over some Yahoo like Chris Collinsworth and his ragtag band of so-called statisticians that do these categorical grades for players. So the kind of stats that we're talking about are typically descriptive statistics. You have inferential statistics, and then you usually have probability or predictive statistics. Now, what kind are relevant to us here? Well, inferential statistics we don't need. Why? Because you're sampling. You're sampling a population. You're doing hypothesis testing, which looks many standard deviations on a standard normal curve and all kinds of other stuff we won't get into. And it gives us information. It describes that population for us. And we don't need that because guess what? This is the NFL. We have all the stats. We have everything we need. There isn't games they didn't play that we don't know about. We have the entire population of statistics. So we don't need inferential stats. When it comes to predictive statistics, we don't need that either. We're not looking forward. We're looking backwards. Who's better? Who's played better? So what does that leave us? Descriptive statistics. So it's pretty simple. We just need the stats that describe the way that they played, and we have them all. Now, here's the difference, and everybody really needs to understand this. There's different categories of stats and numbers. You have nominal stats, you have ordinal stats, you've got whole numbers. So ultimately, the difference between what folks like PFF and other folks do, they use categorical statistics on an ordinal scale or a nominal scale. So they'll give a player a PFF grade, right? Well, you can't divide a PFF grade. You can't divide it by the number of games they played, the number of snaps. You can't multiply. You can't add, subtract. It doesn't make sense. It is a subjective statistic that requires somebody to look at something and determine based on how they feel about it in the environment what that stat is. That's a bad way to do business. Imagine if your iPhone was made that way, where you had different operators deciding rather than a machine that does it the same way every time and a human being controlling that machine. So it's really nonsense using PFF grades and offensive line grades, pass rush grades. PFF will try to make statistics on things like pressure. Well, who determines what a pressure is and isn't? It's very subjective. Not only that, who determines if a pressure was helpful or hurtful? You've watched Big Ben a ton. I've watched him a ton. You've watched Patrick Mahomes a ton. And what do those guys do? When you pressure them, they float on the outside. They make huge plays. They're daring you to pressure them. You can't just pressure somebody. You need to get them. You need to sack them, or you need to at least hit them and make them feel the pain. PFF also does things like determining whose fault an interception was. Now, on the surface, we might go, oh, yeah, that interception wasn't the QB's fault. The receiver didn't catch it. It bounced off his hands. Well, again, that's subjective. Who's to say if the pass wasn't a little bit off or wasn't exactly where it was supposed to be? Who's to say that the QB shouldn't have thrown the damn ball to that receiver? You don't throw the ball to the guy that's in his head, that has the yips, that isn't catching well, that's over the middle, that's afraid to take hits. So you can't introduce this subjective nature to statistics. It has to be real stats, sacks, forced fumbles, QB hits, tackles, things that we can actually objectively measure. And me and 1,000 other people that look at it will agree on, yes, that's what happened. That is the way big boys and big girls use statistics. I'll give you one more example before we dive in, and I show you exactly why TJ Watt is better in every category than Myles Garrett. Imagine if you showed up to a Apple's investor meeting, its quarterly conference call, and instead of giving you revenue, EBITDA, number of phones sold, net income, something that's real, they gave you their Apple grade. And their Apple grade is based on, how well they think they sold their phones and all these other external factors. Were they pressured? Were they blocked? Blah, blah, blah. You'd go nuts. You would say, no, I want to know what money did you get? What results did you get? I don't care about the external factors. And when you have somebody subjectively trying to mask real stats with these environmental factors at play, you are going off a very slippery slope in a dangerous territory. When people give you rankings and things, again, it's categorical. It's not real. You need real stats. We're comparing whole numbers of things that we can all measure objectively. That's what we're doing, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. What you're looking at here are TJ Watt's stats. I have this in Excel. Just on the surface here, we're just looking at his stats. There's really no comparison. There's no benchmarks. We may have benchmarks in our head that we know double-digit sacks are good. We see these bold numbers here where he led the league. We go, oh, that's great, but it still really means nothing. We need to find out every time TJ Watt was on the field, not every game, every snap. That is the only way to measure and compare apples to apples when it comes to players. Every snap TJ Watt took, what is the ratio? With every snap he took, how many interceptions did he get? How many yards did he run for those interceptions? How many touchdowns did he get? How many forced fumbles did he get on every snap? How many sacks did he get on every snap? There is no better way to compare. And anybody out there, leave it in the comment, email me. I'd love to hear your crazy wizard formula excuse as to why that isn't how you compare. That's how all businesses compare their financial statements. It's how the GAAP is structured when it comes to financial reporting. It's how IFRS is structured internationally for financial reporting. You get ratios, and you can compare apples to apples as far as comparing companies. So again, what does that mean? Well, it means that we have snaps here for TJ Watt. We have his snaps every year. 751 his first year. You can sort of read from there. And then we have 5,634 snaps in total. And now all we did here is put the same statistics across the top and divided the actual result by the number of snaps, right? And we do that for every year. And all of the subsequent stats that you can see here. So what's the takeaway? Well, we get this, right? We get something like this, that on 0.13% of the 751 snaps, TJ Watt got an interception. It equates to one interception. But as you get to more meaningful numbers like sacks, on 1% his first year, on 1% of snaps, he sacked the quarterback. On 7.19% of snaps, he got a combined tackle. So now we can compare this to other players in the league. Where does he stand? What does it look like? So let's go ahead and take a look at Mr. Myles Garrett here and his stats. And we've done the same thing for Myles Garrett here. Okay, same thing. You can see it. We're comparing the snaps versus the plays. So for this one, forced fumbles, in what year was this for him? In 2019, forced fumbles for Myles Garrett. He only played 545 snaps, but of those snaps, on 0.37%, he got a forced fumble. And that equated to 2 forced fumbles. So it's pretty simple, right? Now we can compare these guys. We can compare apples to apples. And when you do that, here's what you get. Again, these numbers are from, I think it's Pro Football Stats. It's one of the most reputable sites to get stats on. So when we want to compare these guys, we're going to compare them on each category here based on the number of snaps that they took over their career versus the results that they got. So every time they stepped on the field, how did it influence these stats and who's ahead? So when it comes to interceptions, on 0.12% of TJ Watt's snaps, he intercepted the football. And what does that equate to? That equates to 7 total interceptions. Myles Garrett, no interceptions in his career. So TJ Watt gets the head nod there. Yards, return the interception. Obviously, everywhere on interception. So from TD, long, actually, So these 4 categories, they all go to TJ Watt. Actually, we'll go ahead and change the TDs to this guy here because TJ Watt has never returned a touchdown interception. So as far as interceptions, interception yards, and the longest interception, TJ Watt wins in the first 4 categories for interceptions. Then we go to passes defended here. And what do we have? On 0.8% of TJ Watt's snaps, he has defended a pass. Myles Garrett, 0.3%. That's a huge number. Myles Garrett's a defensive lineman. He should be getting his hands on a ton of balls. TJ Watt is well over twice what Myles Garrett is there. So he gets the head nod there. Forced fumbles on 0.48% of all snaps that TJ Watt took. He gets a forced fumble. For Myles Garrett, it's 0.32. So TJ Watt gets the head nod there. As far as, the player fumbling the ball, neither of them have had the ball and have fumbled it. So we don't compare those stats. As far as fumble return yards, again, TJ Watt, he gets, 1 yard on 0.62% of his stats or of his snaps, and Myles Garrett 0.3%. So again, more yards returned on fumbles for TJ Watt. He gets the head nod there. On touchdowns, it's a draw. They've both returned 1 touchdown or 1 fumble for 1 touchdown. So nothing else to compare there. As far as sacks go, this is the big one, right? This is the one we all wanted to hear about. TJ Watt, 1.71% of his snaps, he sacks the quarterback. Myles Garrett, it's 1.66. It's close, but TJ Watt edges him out. And, when you look at these stats, Myles Garrett's been incredibly consistent. He's always in the 1%, mid 1%, or high 1%, but TJ Watt has been over 2% twice in, I think it was 2022 or 2021. Which year was it here? 2021, TJ Watt sacked the quarterback 2.97% of his snaps when he got the 22.5 sacks. That's just amazing. What has brought TJ Watt down is the year he was injured and didn't play well. Now, again, injuries, we're not going to contextualize these stats with fake things. You heard me before. But you can see here in 2022 that TJ Watt just didn't play anywhere near what his stats say. He had torn a pectoral muscle and tried to play. So probably if it weren't for that, it'd be higher. I know Myles Garrett has battled through some injuries, but TJ Watt wins this category. Let's look at combined tackles. 7.12% for TJ Watt. It's 5.73 for Myles Garrett. So again, more combined tackles every time TJ Watt's on the field than Myles Garrett. How about solo tackles? And it's 5.1% for TJ Watt. It's 3.94 for Myles Garrett. TJ Watt wins for assisted tackles. It's 1.95% for Watt. 1.78 for Garrett. Again, Watt wins. Let's come over here to tackles for loss. It's 1.9% of all snaps. TJ Watt tackles the player for a loss. For Myles Garrett, it's 1.76%. For QB hits, for TJ Watt, it's 3.51% of all of his snaps. For Myles Garrett, it's 3.23%. And obviously, neither of these players have got a safety. So what do you notice from this? This isn't fanboy stuff. These are real statistics. These are their statistics that are objectively measured, that 1,000 people can agree on. They're not PFF stats. They're not these categorical bullcrap stats. These are real stats. In every single category, TJ Watt is better than Myles Garrett. There isn't one that Myles Garrett is better. Not one. And I think, how many categories do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And it was a draw in 4 of them. So basically, of the 13 stats that we're comparing, TJ Watt is better in all of them. Now, for those of you who maybe aren't very good at statistics, that is statistically significant. That is what's real. If I'm representing TJ Watt is an agent in looking to get him paid, or looking to get him paid more than another player, this is all I need to come to the table and say, my player is the best player. He gets the most money. My player is the best. Look, you can make it however you want. You can look at their measurables as far as how tall they are, how high they jump, what they look like, how fast they are. My guy gets results. And for those of you who aren't in business, believe me when I tell you, it doesn't matter what the person looks like, who's getting you revenue and who's selling your product. It doesn't matter if they're black, if they're white, if they're big, if they're small, if they're a woman, if they're a man, if they're, short, tall. It doesn't matter. It matters what results they get. TJ Watt consistently gets better results than Myles Garrett. And if you're a Browns fan or a boohooer out there, so sad, too bad. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can show anybody. There's nothing you can show me. This is really what it is. TJ Watt's the better player. Sorry about your luck. Whew. We got that off our chest. Sometimes I get all these feelings in me when I see these articles and ranking lists that put Myles Garrett ahead of TJ Watt, or fanboys that say, oh, Myles Garrett's better than TJ Watt. It's not true. There is no proof. There's no stats out there that prove that. And any stats that there are out there are not real stats. They're categorical. They're bullcrap. They're from people that don't know what they're talking about. Trust me when I tell you, rewatch the video if you missed it. TJ Watt is a better pass rusher and a better defensive player all around in every category, statistically, than Myles Garrett. He's the guy you want on your team over Myles Garrett. And plus, TJ Watt doesn't take his helmet off and try to hit defenseless quarterbacks with it either. Once again, I'm Ron John. This is Steelers Therapy. Until next time.